Welcome to episode 257 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Network. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We've been working really hard, trying to get the numbers up. We're very close to 900 subscribers, so please help and hit that like button, hit that notification button. Everything helps. If you can't watch on the video side, listen wherever you get your podcasts as well, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, YouTube Premium. Basically, if you have some kind of audio device, whatever that is today, whether that's an iPad device or a digital device, you can find it. I promise. You'll be able to find it wherever you get your podcasts. And also, Empty the Bench and the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others. We spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. We've been at it, doing NBA streams. We did one on Veterans Day. That one was kind of cool. It was all 8 p.m. Eastern Time games, 5 games. We had a fun little moment. I didn't get to put the clip out yet, but it was me basically trashing Podcast P, Paul George's podcast. So
Jeez.
you'll get to see that in a few days. I had a little fun with that, but we are working on some NBA streams, so make sure you work on that. By the way, welcome back.
Thank you. Also, Fight Study happened a little earlier than usually we have the episode, and then Fight Study happens a couple of days, but behind the scenes measures has caused us to do Fight Study a little earlier than normal this week, but the archive of that is available on the Playback page if you want to watch Zan and I watch some old fights involving John Jones, Steve Miocic before they collide this Saturday.
You mean when John Jones is not opening his big fat mouth saying dumb things?
Well, did you know that John Jones is the best fighter in the world, period?
Thank you, Dana White.
I have Dana White on my phone on standby, who is always there to remind me that he is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
That clip is still the best. I've watched it a few times. Oh no, he's the pound-for-pound best fighter right now in the world. But, by the way, thanks to Johnny Montalbano for last week filling in. There was a lot of stories last week. There's a lot of stories this week. And I was telling Tom, and I'll tell the audience now, I have something unique that I came up with. And no, it's nothing scary. I promise. I'm not going to say something incredibly stupid that could get us canceled. I'm promising that.
I would hope not.
So even though we're not an FCC regulated station, or you could be iHeart, who just laid off another 5% of their staff. So, by the way, I just wanted to say one thing. I feel bad for the people who lost their jobs again. And the business is going through a tough time. But I feel bad for all those people. Anyway, a lot of stories coming up.
Yeah, plenty of stories. We have some controversy before we get into everywhere else with the specific sports sections. A couple of different people are at it again. You have Wander Franco being accused of something again.
Great.
You have Florida's Todd Golden, who's the head coach for Florida men's college basketball, who has his own accusations against him. The Bears have made a coaching change, and it's one that I'm surprised I didn't hear from Zan a lot sooner than when I heard from him.
Well, let's put it this way. We found out behind the curtain, because I love doing this all the time. We found out about an hour or two before his show. And he's the Bears fan. Let's remind everybody of that. So
I can only imagine what Grant will say this week on Football Forecast.
Yeah, this will be very interesting. Let's just say this caused the shakeup, but it's not the shakeup everybody expected.
Yeah. Gregg Popovich, unfortunately, major concern with him. Tyrese Maxey is hurt, so the 76ers are looking great to start the year already, as is the rest of the Eastern Conference, it seems.
But don't worry, Joel Embiid is back.
Joy. You know who's not back? Bronny James, who has been officially moved to the G League.
They're gonna make a lot of money anyway.
I know. And then we'll talk about a little something on the football end, and it involves a certain team that I just love. And when I say love, I mean love to hate.
Cowboy.
Don't you worry. There's going to be plenty of interesting football stories.
Don't worry. I say that in jest, knowing that my team is also in the crapper. But nevertheless,
both of our teams are in the crapper.
All three of the teams that we're talking about are in the crapper. And then Tropicana Field updates that story, which is causing a really unique situation. But let's start things off with Wander Franco. We're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Rays. We'll talk about their stadium, but let's first talk about, well, let's assume somebody who's going to be, if he's not already, a former Tampa Bay Ray.
Oh, no. I think we can safely say it's pretty much a done deal.
At this point, the Rays are going to be let out of that contract because Wander Franco has been arrested in the Dominican Republic again.
Yeah, that's not a typo. If you think like this is a replay to something we did, how many months ago was it now?
Yeah, you're not watching Empty the Bench episode 223 or whatever. No, you're watching a new episode. Wander Franco's back in the DR and he's been arrested again. And it's not even anything that involves any of his previous accusations. This is a whole other thing.
Let's put it this way. He was out on bail. And someone must have recognized him, I guess. And there was an altercation in a parking lot of an apartment complex. And to make things worse, guns were drawn.
Yes, so the ESPN story, Wander Franco was arrested Monday in San Juan de la Maguana, 116 miles west of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, after what two police sources said was an altercation in the parking lot of an apartment complex in which guns were drawn. Dominican police spokesman told the AP some men in the altercation were carrying firearms, but did not specify which ones. Police sources confirmed that Franco and an unnamed woman were being held for questioning following the incident. Another man was also detained and 2 firearms were seized. The spokesman said one of the guns presumably belonged to Franco, who was allegedly fighting with the other man over the woman's attention.
So he hasn't learned. Is what basically what we're saying here.
I guess not.
Now, again, it's interesting that they don't know the age or the identity of the person.
Well, it says woman, so I assume it's 18 plus.
You never know with him. But my point is, he hasn't learned. He got in trouble last time for altercations. I wouldn't say the same thing because this is a completely different scenario, but he hasn't learned. First of all, why are you walking around with a gun knowing you're out on bail?
Because dumb.
Or what is it? Or well, you're right. But my only, and I'm not defending him. Let me be very clear about that. Number one, is he using it to protect? Does he think he's going to get attacked if he's seen in public?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Now, is he going to claim like it's my self-defense in case someone attacks me?
And that's the thing. I don't know what the DR's rules are when it comes to having a gun on a person. Like, what do they call it? Concealed carry, I think.
Concealed carry license or whatever they call it. CCW or concealed carry weapon license.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, if he didn't have the license on him, which they don't claim whether he had a license or not, that would be a whole nother charge in itself. Didn't we just talk about the Lions running back when you were on with me 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
He didn't have a concealed carry.
Receiver, right?
Yeah, that's right. And he didn't have a CCW, so he got a charge for that. So, again, I think that's the wrong part of the story to actually talk about, but it's just a point of emphasis. But
the fact that all of this is going down because he was fighting for the attention of a woman, when meanwhile you have all of these accusations against you from previously involving an underage person, allegedly. Like, there are, like you said, there's a time and a place. And number one, I don't know if I would be the kind of person to get involved in a altercation with guns around over the sake of a woman. And number two, I mean, number two, I mean, come on, man. Like, you have all these accusations against you. And when you have all these accusations against you, I think the last thing that I want to be is detained and all those reports to come out that, I was detained in the middle of an incident where guns were involved.
I mean, I'm reading the story. He was due to stand trial in the DR on December 12th. We're talking about a month from the day of this recording.
Yep.
And you're an idiot and you get in trouble again with the law.
Oh, this will be fun.
And if we thought his career was over already, it is DEAD, dead.
You would have to assume, I know technically that he still has to stand trial, but you would have to assume that Tampa Bay, if they haven't already, have to find some sort of out on that contract.
Well, first of all, if the amount of evidence, because we talked about this, there's a ton of evidence on him. So if we think what's going to happen, because we can't say automatically it's going to happen, but if we think the outcome that's going to happen is going to happen, he's going to go to jail.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Which would trigger the ability for the Tampa Bay Rays to get out of that contract.
And the Rays are known for in the past, like they will spend over the arbitration years for sometimes to keep a player, and that's the same situation they did here.
Well,
and you know what? They're begging, get me out of this contract, please.
Well, that being said, you have to hope that Major League Baseball Players Association isn't dumb enough to fight this fight.
The thing is, and you and I, when we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic and we talked about the MLBPA fighting for the dumbest shit possible from time to time, including the amount of games they wanted to play during the regular season.
You basically, I know where you're going. It's basically the fear of, do they have to? Because technically he's an MLB player.
Look what happened with A-Rod and the steroid stuff.
Right.
They fought. Even when he called out the MLBPA and said, I don't like you guys, what did the MLBPA do?
They had to fight for him.
They didn't care. Well, I should say A-Rod didn't care. But the MLBPA fights for who?
The players.
So now the difference is if there's a legal matter involved, this is a whole different issue. So now you have countries
that's the thing.
involved.
If he gets a guilty verdict in any sort of degree,
you can't
especially
defend
for
him.
the former charges, I should say, you would have to hope that Tony Clark and company have the wherewithal to say, yeah, this is one we're not going to touch with a 9-foot pole.
And I don't want to hear a BS argument of morality, because that's what comes up in sports. Oh, well, it's not a morality issue. It is a morality issue. You're telling me that an alleged relationship with an underage individual is not a morality issue? And now you're fighting people with guns? Basically, the conclusion I've come to is Wander Franco is a horrible human being, in every way, shape, or form. Everyone says, oh, athletes are supposed to be great people. Newsflash, most of them are not.
Welcome to, unfortunately, how human beings tend to be awful.
You know how they say, you don't want to meet, your sports heroes?
Yeah.
Well, right. Technically heroes, but mostly you don't want to meet your sports heroes. Because most of the time, they're not the person you think they are. And including you and I growing up in the Derek Jeter age, because you and I both grew up in that age, and we both Derek Jeter, who consummate professional on the field. We got to see what happened off the field with some of the stuff.
I still want to meet him.
No, absolutely. And so would I. But I'm saying he's not a perfect individual, like everyone pointed out.
He's not. But at this point, who is?
That's true. And I agree. I'm just saying, I hope no one had Wander Franco as a hero. That would be a scary
No.
But long story short, he can't be defended. He just cannot be defended.
Like, obviously, we talk about letting the legal matters play out, but at the same time, it's tough to look at this guy in the same light when he's got all these accusations against him now from 2 incidents at least.
So I just read something in the ESPN store which might answer the question about the CCW.
Okay.
So police said that Franco would be free to carry a gun should he have a license to carry one and have said weapon registered.
So comes to the question of, does he have a register?
Police could not confirm on Monday whether Franco had met either of those requirements. Uh-oh.
Well, again, it comes down to, did he or did he not? If he did, Nick, then you know what's going to happen to this? It's going to go away.
It's going to go away.
If he doesn't, that's not good.
Let's just put it this way. If he doesn't have the CCW and he was carrying an illegal weapon, that's just going to make the other case worse, 10 times worse. Because what do they say? When you get a charge from something else, it makes...
Right, and now he's got basically double jeopardy. He's got 2 charges guiding against him.
So, and I forgot how big his deal was, because it says it here in the story. It was 11 years, $182 million extension in 2021. Just 70 games into his career.
Yep. The Rays believed in him that much.
Which is crazy. Like, first of all, I would never sign anybody to that type of money out of 70 games. But unfortunately, his career is probably over. And this is a classic. What could have been, right? But this is a classic. I'm too big for my britches. A little bit. I can do whatever I want.
Well, speaking of big for britches, Florida men's basketball head coach Todd Golden. You know, we don't cover college sports too much on this podcast, but when it's time for somebody to come under the controversy limelight, it's Todd Golden's turn here. He is under investigation for sexual misconduct. Apparently, he gave some unwanted attention, i.e., stalking, in person and on social media to at least 2 unnamed women.
And by the way, before we get into this, I want to give credit to 2 people who we followed through this story. Actually, their newspaper, the University of Florida, it's the
Alligator.
It's an independent Florida newspaper that they run through the college.
Yep.
Right, called the Alligator. And I give the 2 guys credit because they wrote a really good story on this, covering
and actually spoke to the women anonymously.
Right. So Jack Mayer and Max Tucker really did a good job. We tried reaching out to them or waiting to hear if we get an answer back from one of them. Because I'd actually like to know more because there's a lot of loose ends on this story.
Basically, what we've got here is a Title IX issue. So I'll read. Basically, they were able to score an interview with these 2 women with anonymity.
By the way, disclaimer number 1, just because I want to get it out of the way, because you and I were discussing some of the portions of this story.
Yeah, this might get a little rough. So
just be prepared if younger people are watching.
Viewer/listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, because
if you're somehow watching this with your child, you might want to
earmuffs, as my aunt used to say.
Yeah. The Alligator spoke with 2. This is coming from Jack and Max's story. The Alligator spoke with 2 separate women who attested to Golden's behavior and requested to remain anonymous for safety reasons. Since the investigation began, there was a small amount of action that was taken by UF, both women said. The first woman, a former UF student, said that Golden stalked her in person, both in his car and on foot, and that this occurred, quote, more than 10 times. On one occasion, she said she posted her location on her Instagram story, and Golden messaged her shortly after saying that he was in the area, quote, waiting for her.
Stalker.
What's that song? Oh, Every Breath You Take by the Police. I hear that in my head right now reading that.
Yeah.
Well, here's where it gets worse. She also said Golden sent unsolicited photos of his to her.
So let's just put it this way. As soon as you hear anything like that, you've lost every ultimate piece of credibility you have.
Well, here's more details on it. On multiple occasions, the first woman said she received the photos while the team was traveling on the road.
This is bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, she actually, here's their quote. And I mean, the quote itself, when you look at it, sounds funny when you imagine somebody talking.
You and
but
I were
obviously-
talking about this.
Right, but
Yeah.
obviously this is not funny. At first, it starts off, this is the full quote. At first, it starts off so like, oh, wow, that's odd. This guy's showing us attention. And then it becomes, wow, he's kind of crossing a line. No, he didn't mean it that way. Then it's, wait, he's fully stepping over the line. And then it's, wow, there's a picture of his.
Yeah. So
basically saying it was a grooming process. That's what it was.
yeah, it went from 1 to a million very fast.
And at least those two women have both attested to doing that real stalker thing where you go back and look at old photos of somebody through the years and liking those older photos.
That's so creepy. Like, it's so, like, why? Why?
It was like really aggressive stalking on Instagram. And actually, here's where the credit is, because I didn't know that such a website exists. But shout out to the Alligator guys for doing this.
Yeah, you and I were discussing this too.
Snoop Report.
Yes.
Publicly accessible Instagram activity tracking software. Golden unfollowed 118 accounts between August 1st and September 1st. At least 20, if not more, of these accounts appear to have been young women without connection to the Florida basketball program or any other organizations that Golden had been previously affiliated with. The women separately confirmed, meaning the two women that the Alligator talked to, Golden blocked them rather than unfollowed. The second woman said Golden told numerous women that they were, quote, his drug or, quote, his good luck charm before games.
This is one of those stories that the more you hear,
it gets worse.
It gets worse and worse and worse. And you know how they say, like, you just keep digging a hole until you hit China on the other side? Like, he's getting very close to hitting China on the other side of the world.
He might dig himself past China if all this is true.
And you know what's worse? I just looked this up myself just to make sure this was accurate. He's married.
Yes. Yes.
And he's got two.
Worse.
Wait a minute. He's married and he has 2 kids.
Yes.
Fire him.
Oh man, if this is all true, oh, and I should mention the first woman also added more accusations towards the program as a whole. Basically,
the environment.
Yeah, toxic work environment filled with sexual harassment. They're meaning the Florida basketball program.
Okay, so we don't have 100% access to all that, so we can't say anything about that. But this is bad. Like, this is just,
if this is true, even if the second part about the culture is not, goes unfounded. If anything that Golden does is true, and I mean, when, as an advocate for student journalism myself, if what they found at Snoop Report's site and everything, and they have corroborated evidence against this man, this is not good for him. This is not good for the program. He's probably losing his job, and it's a really bad look. And who knows what other penalties the program might have to pay.
So my question is, this is a campus newspaper?
Yes.
So my question is, why didn't the campus squash it, if that's the case?
It's an independent newspaper.
Oh, so they're not funding it, so they could... Okay.
Yep.
I'm surprised they still haven't tried to squash it anyway.
At least by the sound of things.
It says independent in big words on top. But I'm surprised they didn't try to squash it anyway, considering it's being done by their own...
Maybe they did, but you know what? Good for these fellas standing up for journalism.
I just hope they don't lose a scholarship or anything if they're at the school. But this is bad news. And you and I we've done many like similar stories to this. We've done school program investigations. We've probably done like 10 or 20 of these over the years. Like
we had a couple of Northwestern people, I think it was last year when all the bad stuff was going on with them.
That's when we had Bradley Locker.
Yes.
Who was very well versed in that whole situation.
And Zan, because he was a Northwestern alum.
I think he even knew the coach at the time. But I'm saying Bradley was like right on the inside of the wall.
Yep.
Which was interesting. This is bad. Like this is I don't know if this is the same as what happened at Northwestern, because that was mistreating players.
Yeah.
But
apples and oranges, but still the point being that there are things that you should just not do when you are the coach of a very prestigious
the head coach is also being watched.
An organization at a very prestigious college. Also, very well-known college.
Also as the head coach.
As a head coach. As a married man with kids.
Well, I didn't even get there yet. But my point is, you're the head coach, which the university, the public, everyone is watching your every move.
Yep.
And that's how you use your power?
Yep. Unfortunately, that's what some people do.
And here's the worst part. Guess what he's still doing?
Coaching.
He's on the sidelines.
Yep.
I thought when the Northwestern situation happened, didn't they temporarily bench the head coach?
No, I thought they kept him around for a little bit.
Well, I'm not saying fired. I'm saying like they put him on the sidelines temporarily.
On leave, basically?
Yeah.
Well, I guess Florida is very confident and they believe in their guy and his morals. So
yeah, but this situation is so bad. You have to put him on the sidelines while they're investigating.
I guess they don't think so.
I mean, with half the stuff that these women are saying.
I know. I'm not defending it.
No. I'm just saying half the things that these women are saying. Now, I hate to say this, but like I guess you have to worry partially about if someone over exacerbates a story from time to time. Unfortunately, when we live in a social media society.
Again, let the investigation play itself out.
No. I'm agreeing. But I'm just saying, I guess that's what people are worrying about, too.
Right. But when you've got great student journalists like the guys at the Alligator...
No, this is a very well-written story. By every standard. Like, I read through this whole story and I said, wow, this is good. They paint a whole picture for me. I understand what's going on. But you know what they're going to say once they release a statement. All right, we gotta check out both sides of the situation. And
all right. I'm not saying that there is going to be something there, but it does not look good. Bad luck to the university.
And I'm reading all the quotes, and I think it says in the story he hired a lawyer, and which I expected him to do anyway, because he's going to claim he did nothing. Which, again, if all this evidence is true, that argument's going to go out the window. And let's just put it this way: if he's guilty. Because I think eventually this will end up in a court. I think the Northwestern situation they settled, if I'm not mistaken, and like they settled on a certain amount of money and they paid him off to go away. Now this one, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they do the same thing. Maybe they go through a settlement, whatever his contract is, and they pay out part of it and he goes away and then he never coaches again, because that's what will happen if it's true.
Yeah.
But I guess the answer, and you would say this all the time, is I guess we got to rest judgment until we know what.
Let it play out. Let the legal process play out. By the way, going off of this, just because we're kind of done talking about it, but like, I'm just looking at social media. We're recording this on the first night of the NBA Cup. The hell is this? All the blue lighting around. It's probably some sort of...
You talking about the new... well, just for context, they redid the courts for each team.
Right, like they did last year.
And they look way better now.
This has to look like... This is probably a bit Photoshop filtery, because it's like this blue court that the Sixers have.
Well, all right. Do me a favor. Quickly send me the picture so I can see it but as you're doing that, I'm just going to say that the courts look way better. The way they redid them, their imaging is way better. They did inside of a color box based on the team, so that way it doesn't look like one solid color and your eyes don't hurt. So, but they're way better now.
I just want to do a double check on myself with the 76ers. Yeah, I mean, that has a little bit of a blue tint to it, the way that they're
because they're like blue red. They're like blue and red, kind of.
But like, still, I don't know. Something doesn't seem right about a blue court like that.
I've never actually liked the solid color courts. It looks weird, but the ones they did now look way better.
I think the 76ers are going to need the Blue Man Group to do a halftime show, the way that their court is.
I mean, that's pretty funny, actually. I do like, though, now that they're putting the actual logos into the center because it actually gives it a branding purpose. But I think the jury's still out on them somewhat.
Yeah. All right. Second half of the show. Keep going through. Adam Schefter reported earlier today that we're recording this that Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, has been fired. Offensive passing game coordinator Thomas Brown has now been promoted to offensive coordinator. I feel bad saying this as somebody who is a Giants fan, and my team is also currently in the toilet. Yes, your team as well. Look, Caleb Williams needs better development.
This is not his fault by any means.
Yeah. I think Grant and Zan, Grant was going off about it last football forecast. Zan kind of went off about it. Bando's breakdown earlier today.
Oh, it was a good one. Trust me, I was producing that one. That was good.
They need better people around Caleb Williams to help with his.
This coaching staff stinks.
I mean, it's bad enough that, say what you will about Justin Fields. I think he got a little bit of a bad rap. The people in that organization did not do as much for him as they did with Caleb Williams. But now you're surrounding Caleb with all this talent, and it's not working. The offense is just The success, and we've talked about it, earlier this season. The success for the Chicago Bears team has been their defense and special teams.
Yeah, I think they've gone 2 games without an offensive touchdown, I think is what is the number right now, which is incredible, by the way, that they have not scored a touchdown in 2 games.
Consider that Daniel Jones actually did not score.
Well, no, that's home games.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm talking about 2 straight actual games without an offensive touchdown whatsoever. Now,
you can't have that happen. I'm sorry.
No. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think I said it with Zan and Grant on forecast this past week. Eberflus should never have been allowed to coach this team this year at all. This guy can't coach. He's a horrible coach. No one wants to play for him. And then there were reports after this offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, basically being thrown under the bus like everybody else. There were reports that they wanted, I can't pronounce his name, Bagnant, the backup quarterback, Tyler Baggant. And
hold on.
And basically, the players were calling for him to start over Caleb Williams.
I don't think it's Caleb Williams' fault.
No. I'm not blaming. I'm saying
Tyson Bagent.
Bagent, thank you. And players on his own team wanted Bagent to start over Caleb Williams. It's a dysfunctional locker room.
Yeah, well, I think some of that combined with what's going on with my team, what's going on with the Colts, I think it just plays into the storyline of, and hopefully one of these days we can talk about it more on a forecast episode or something. I think the talking point going around the NFL, is there a quarterback development problem?
Yeah, I would say yes. I started bringing that up last week when we were talking on forecast and even on here with Johnny. I said that they're not playing enough on the college level. They're coming out after one semester. That's not enough. Or is it 2 semesters? I don't know. I know in college basketball it's 1, but
I think it's 3. I think you're required 3.
in football it's different.
But are they getting any playing time as freshmen?
No, of course not.
So that means there's a chance, some of them may have a redshirt season where they get the full 3, but some of them may be only playing 2 seasons.
I mean, you get the one rarity where Patrick Mahomes, who redshirted, people forget this, by the way, that he redshirted his first season when he was in college.
Yeah. And then he sat behind Alex Smith his actual rookie year.
But that's how it worked back then. You sat behind a veteran quarterback, and I think he got lucky, unfortunately, fortunately, because of the Alex Smith injury and all that stuff.
The Alex Smith injury didn't happen until the year after.
I'm just saying that kind of sped him up a little.
But Alex Smith wasn't on the team at that point. But my point being that we're of a culture, like Daniel Jones was drafted 6th. Zach Wilson was drafted 2nd. Anthony Richardson was drafted, I think, 4th. When you have a very early first-round pick,
it better work.
The expectation is you have to start right away.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake because these guys are not ready for the league. It's a totally different game. People forget you're playing one-leg receiver catches in college. It's a totally different game.
It doesn't work for everybody. Deshaun Watson, when he started with the Texans back in 2017, worked. When Mitch Trubisky did that because he was in the same draft class, did not exactly work.
I mean, people forget Rex Grossman actually went to a Super Bowl with the Bears.
Yep.
That's a scary thing, by the way, that Rex Grossman of all quarterbacks went to a Super Bowl with the Bears. But since we were I want to bring this up now because I was down a rabbit hole over the last couple of days. And this goes back to my days when I used to do music radio in college.
Okay.
I used to take 2 titles of songs and clash it into one big title and make fun of somebody.
Yes.
So it's this situation with the Bears. It's the situation with the Giants. It's a situation with the Jets. So there's 2 songs I pulled out here, and they're from 2 completely different eras of music.
Okay.
So one is How Much I Feel by Ambrosia.
Never heard of it.
That's 1978. It's before our time, but I played a lot of oldies music when I was in college. And then this one you should know, John Bellan, All Time Low.
Yes.
So I came up with How Much I Feel with All Time Low. For All Time Low, I should say.
Yeah, we currently are at all-time lows. I mean, Nick, the Giants have the number 1 overall pick right now.
But I want to point out one more thing, because I was looking up the history of the song How Much I Feel. Now follow me here, because this is going to relate to all of those situations I just brought up to you. This song How Much I Feel by Ambrosia is a song about still being hung up on a woman long after they broke up. Near the end of the song, the singer mentions that he's married and we're still going strong. But sometimes when we make love, I can still see your face. This marriage doesn't sound like a healthy one.
Yeah, that kind of goes with plenty of different things.
That's all these situations. They're together, kind of, but it's not a healthy relationship.
The Giants with Daniel Jones. The Jets with
Aaron Rodgers.
LAX.
You can even throw the Colts in there with Anthony Richardson, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Joe Flacco didn't exactly look elite in this last game.
Well, I'm guaranteeing you did not expect me to do that, did you?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. There you go.
And mine is still trying to wrap my head around it. All right. We got 20 minutes. Let's get to some sports headlines. Actual on the court, on the field.
We'll get back to the NFL in a little bit.
Yeah. Going over to the NBA. Unfortunately, Gregg Popovich has suffered a medical episode. So I think we had mentioned, or you had mentioned with Johnny last week, that he had been out for something. Well, apparently we're not going to see him for the near future.
Yeah. So Popovich, first of all, on the older side for being a coach, still I think he's in his mid-70s, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm looking it up as we speak. So, yeah, he's 75 years old. It makes him not just the oldest head coach in the NBA, but the oldest head coach among the 4 major American professional sports, ahead of 72-year-old MLB manager Ron Washington. So,
I'm
the guy is
surprised
old.
he didn't. I'm just surprised he's still coaching. Like all the world to him, but
I know why he's still coaching. Do you know why he's still coaching?
because this is what he has. This is his world.
Well, okay. That's more the generic reason, but he wanted Wemby. He wanted to coach Wemby. I don't blame him.
I don't blame him that either.
He signed a 5-year deal,
Mm-hmm.
which I was shocked. But I'm trying to find the actual. So I found an SI article that says he's dealing with a serious health issue. If I remember correctly, he was on the court when he had a medical issue, and
he had to leave the game, I think.
Yeah, and it says that it created an atmosphere of concern around the organization. According to Shams, he was told it was a health issue, and it was a serious health issue that the Spurs dealt with and Gregg Popovich dealt with over the weekend when this happened. It is still uncertain when he's going to make it back on the court. There's a great level of concern around the situation. So we don't know what it is.
And I'll respect the privacy and just hope for the best for him.
But if he had to be taken off the court during a game, because let's put it this way, he will live on this court until he can't do it anymore.
Yep.
So I don't know. He might have to miss the rest of the season.
Look, let's just pray for his recovery. Let's hope it doesn't get to that point. Let's make sure he's okay first.
True.
Health is first.
Being a manager, being a head coach, what do we say about those jobs?
Health is first. And
no, well, right, but it's the most stressful jobs on the field or on the court.
Mm-hmm. And for somebody like Popovich, if he truly wants to still be there, he'll still be there. The Spurs, he has been so much of an element, so much, ingrained within the culture of San Antonio basketball that he's always going to have a spot.
Right. I would compare him to like Belichick when he was with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Torre when he was with the Yankees. Like people that resonated for a long time with one team.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You couldn't put him anywhere else. I mean, you could, and they would find a way to win.
Right. It just wouldn't feel right.
It wouldn't feel right because now we're hearing all the reports that Bill Belichick might end up on another roster.
Right.
Including the Jets.
It feels weird to say. Like when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay after all those years in New England.
Of course, he shut people up when he won a title, but
right. But it still felt weird.
When you heard Tom Brady Super Bowl champion as a Tampa Bay Buck, you're right. That was the most confusing thing in the world. I mean, we're getting off topic a little bit, but my point is that I hope he's okay. He's one of the best to ever do it as a head coach. He's up there with all the big legends in the sport. I think he's won like 5 or 6 titles at least.
Yeah.
And he had a Spurs, would you call it a dynasty? Maybe. They won a bunch of titles.
I mean, they won in 2007. They won.
But I would say the group
was
of
he
players,
there? Was he there for the championship in '99?
I think that was like the very beginning. Yeah. I'm looking up how many titles he's won because it was a bunch.
Gregg Popovich. He won. He was there in '99 when they won.
Oh, I was right. So
Five-time NBA champion, 99, 03, 05, 07, 14.
That's pretty close to dynasty territory. Like the amount of titles in that fast of a stretch.
I forgot that the Spurs won so many times within that span in the early 2000s.
And remember, having the trio of Duncan, Parker, and Manu Ginobili.
Yeah.
That 3 people are not going to admit it, but I'll admit it for them because they refuse to look back in history.
That was one of the best trios.
I would say that was a big 3 before it was ever before the big 3 word was ever a modern thing.
Yeah, before it became overrated.
Right. And now you can't even do it because of all the salary cap issues. But I would say back then that was your modern big 3 because those guys were willing to take a little less to play.
Yeah.
So I hope
Times have
he's
changed.
healthy. I hope he's healthy and he's back on the court because it would be weird not having him out there coaching.
Yeah. 76ers. Tyrese Maxey is expected, as of the time we're recording this, to miss another week. He suffered a hamstring injury last week. So you've got Tyrese Maxey, who is hurt. You have Paul George, who is playing, despite the fact that we had all those concerns in the preseason. Joel Embiid is back. I don't think he's still going to play, back-to-back games again.
There's one noise I've really wanted to play for the 76ers, and now I can finally do it.
If this is a preview of what this team season is going to be like, they're overrated as hell.
Oh no, they already are overrated. I'm looking up their record because I don't even remember. Like they were like 1-7 or something to start.
The Eastern Conference, there's like two or three teams that are above 500 at this point.
Okay, I was close enough. They're 2-7 as of this recording. They're such a dumpster fire. Joel Embiid we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, suspended 3 games for shoving a reporter, even though he might have been not wrong partially.
Right. 2 wrong. As Johnny said last week, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
It's true. Absolutely right.
But 3 rights do make a left.
Damn it. You beat me to my favorite saying. But I feel bad for Maxey. Maxey is a really good player, but he's had some unfortunate bad luck with injuries. Just injury after injury after injury.
And it stinks because he's supposed to, well, you mentioned the term big 3. They tried to make a big 3 with this Embiid PG-13 Maxey combination.
The problem is, and I don't understand this, and this is my NBA nerd coming out here for a second, but
okay,
everyone says Maxey is not part of those two, like saying that they're not on the same level.
I mean, perhaps in terms of star power, but when you look at the role Maxey plays on this team, they kind of need him to be a support for Embiid and PG-13.
Well, the scary part is he was putting up video game-like numbers and they're 2-7.
Yeah.
Imagine if he didn't put up the numbers.
Right.
They'd be losing by like 30 points a game. Like, I mean, the Sixers are big doo-doo, as they say. I like Maxey too. Like, he's a really good high-energy player. And like he really deserves to be on a team that plays well and he can kind of fit in as a role player. He kind of reminds me, Ben might not agree with me when I say this, but he kind of reminds me of like a role player like Jaylen Brown.
I'm curious to see how Ben will react to you saying that.
Because Jaylen Brown plays the second role. Jason Tatum is the one. And Jaylen plays as like the Robin role behind him. Now, I wasn't a fan of the Paul George move, when they brought him in. Also, his podcast sucks, by the way. But you'll see that on a clip in a future social media post. But I don't understand the Embiid and George move. I'm going to say it again. Why would you put 2 guys together that can't stay on the court?
For the hope that when they are on the court, the benefits happen. So far, though, that hasn't happened. Now, obviously, we're only at 1/8 through the season, but...
And I don't expect it to happen anytime soon. Because, again, Embiid said he's not playing back-to-back games.
I know. Bronny James has been officially moved down to the G League. Well, it was kind of expected. It was kind of expected that this was going to happen. Because they said he was going to basically be a 2-way player this season, go back and forth between G League and NBA. I kind of said it when he was first, the talks of him getting drafted. I said, put him in the G League because obviously he didn't have as much development between the end of his high school time and his college time because of his heart issues.
He played 1 semester at USC.
Right. So give him time in the G League. And you know what? I have made mention of this, that the G League and the specific team for the Lakers in the G League, the South Bay Lakers, that they would be great business for them. And guess what? When he got officially moved down, and his G League debut got announced. Just like that, South Bay Lakers next home game, Nick, sellout. Complete sellout.
Well, I could have told you that.
Right.
I mean, that was obvious because obviously it's LeBron's son. Everyone wants to see LeBron's son play.
I'm just saying, like, it makes all the sense player development wise and business wise.
I mean, I feel like the G League is the best developmental league in professional sports now because they've really kind of tuned it to college basketball. So, like, if someone doesn't want to finish college, they allow you to go into the G League if you want to play before you get to the NBA level, if you don't want to go through the draft. Because technically, you have to play some form of college basketball to get through the draft.
They had developed that program before.
That's what I'm talking about.
The OTE?
Yeah. So, if you don't go to college, you go through the program, then you play in the G League, and then I think a team can sign you off of a G League team, in a sense. Which I kind of like because sometimes college isn't for everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's good business. I don't like the whole kind of back and forth. I think that's going to disrupt some of his progress.
The one advantage that he has to that is it's the Lakers and the arena for the South Bay Lakers.
It's like 15, 20 minutes away or
exactly.
something. So, I mean, it's not like baseball where sometimes it's on the West Coast for the East Coast.
Right. It's not like he has to travel between Las Vegas and New York.
Oh, like the Mets and the 66ers when they had them at the time? Or 51s, whatever number it is. I don't know anymore. But you know what? This is the right move. I would just keep him down there until he's ready to play. That's just my opinion. Why would you put more pressure on him and put the spotlight on him already?
You know what the answer to that is.
They're not making any money off him right now.
Yeah, but all the highlights of like him and LeBron coming onto the court together.
That was the most ridiculous thing. They purposely had that plan because he was sitting on the bench with his own son.
Of course they did.
They probably discussed that like before the game. They said, you know what? All right, LeBron, we're going to bench you, and then we're going to take Bronny off the bench. You two are going to enter the game together, and that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know they clearly did that.
Of course they did. All right. Couple more stories here. Quickly back over to the NFL. How about them Cowboys? So, Dak Prescott's season is officially done. He is actually getting season-ending surgery, I think, on the day that this episode is premiering. So, he is done. Cooper Rush is now going to be leading the charge down in Dallas.
Is he like 5-1 or something? He has a good record as a backup.
He does. And now your quarterback 2 in Dallas is Trey Lance. Speaking of another former first-round bust for
he got in the game
for San Francisco. Yeah,
he actually got to. He didn't look too bad.
Still, Cooper Rush looked better.
No, but I'm saying Trey Lance actually getting to throw a football was actually kind of.
Honestly, it's hard to say anybody looked good when you get blown out 34-6.
I need to say one thing because now I can say it on our show too. Anyone who said that they were going to lose the game or they were going to get covered because of Nick Sirianni sounds dumb.
Oh boy,
Nick, really? You were going to lose the game because of Nick Sirianni's coaching?
You and Johnny can bicker over that on over the weekend.
I've just never heard of someone's not going to cover the spread because of a coach.
Well, let's talk about a coach here because Micah Parsons,
what a jerk.
Coming after basically his own coach. So look, and I'm saying this because I'm actually going through best of clips for our end of the year spectacular.
This was hilarious.
And there is actually a clip in January. I don't know if it's going to make it into the to the broadcast, but just I'm going back into the episode. The two of us were laughing because the Cowboys got embarrassed in the first round last year. But McCarthy's staying, and now here's Mike McCarthy, who's probably going to get fired at the end of this year. And it's like record-wise, yeah, he deserves it a little, but not everything is his fault. He's basically being scapegoated. And I agreed with you when you said that on Football Forecast, because you saw the Cowboys video I put in, right?
That was great.
You saw the quote at the bottom there from Skip Bayless.
Yes.
Because you know what that was a reference to, right? Because Jerry Jones basically put his foot down and last offseason said, we're going to be all in.
Yeah.
We're going to be all in. I'm going to spend big in free agency. We're going to have the best team at the start of this season. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. And then all Jerry did was sign Ezekiel Elliott and let a bunch of pieces on the defense go.
And made the stupid trade before the deadline.
That's making a Super Bowl team. That's doing good development for your coach. Absolutely. So you awarding yourself best general manager when I had that photo in there? Yeah, because that's the only person. You yourself, Jerry Jones, are the only person who will recognize yourself as best general manager because, oh my God, this season is putting proof that you are not.
Oh, God. Well, it also helps that he's the owner, the CEO, the GM. He thinks he's LeBron James.
He's probably right. He's probably the vendor for the cotton candy in Section 302.
Maybe he's also the window vendor because he needs to fix the sun issue inside his own stadium too. Please tell me you saw that quote.
Yes, with CeeDee Lamb, with the CeeDee Lamb, and he's like, screw that. That doesn't affect anything.
Liar! After he called it out. I mean, are you serious? You're blaming the sun on the windows for why you didn't play well? Really?
Oh, jeez. This team is a disaster.
But the Mike Parsons quote is worse.
The one benefit to the Giants being a disaster is that the Cowboys are also a disaster. But now watch. I'm calling it right now. During the NFL draft, that the Giants are in position to take a quarterback. Watch Jerry make a trade with another team just to spite the Giants, even though Dak Prescott's under contract. I wouldn't put it past Jerry.
Oh, no, I agree. But the quarterback class is god-awful compared to last draft. Like, there's not really a good quarterback out there to really be had. So I don't know what they're going to do. They need a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback. The Jets need a quarterback. A lot of people need quarterbacks. But let's get to let me say something about Dak first.
Yeah.
The reason I think he got hurt is because his offensive line stinks, like really bad. And he didn't have enough time to escape the pocket a lot. And that was a problem. So he was always running for his life and eventually he got hurt. And that was basically the end of his season. Now you're stuck with Cooper Rush and you're basically going to lose a ton of games the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry will be happy because he's making all his money, but
of course. That's
you know who's also grinning? That radio show that's gotten national attention in Dallas.
Oh, yeah, the one
RJ and whatever that show is, RJ and whatever that he goes on for his radio spot.
Oh, the fan in Dallas.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember that. Like Stephen A has given them a lot of recognition. So it's something in RJ. I know.
Shannon RJ?
Yes, that's it.
They've gotten 3 in Dallas.
Yeah, they've gotten national attention because everyone listens in on that interview spot every week.
Well, I can only imagine what's going to happen on the most recent one for this week.
But let's talk about part 2 of this, which is Micah Parsons, which, by the way, he falls under the category of current player with podcasts who can't shut mouth.
Again, it goes back to what I said before. You know, look, I get it. Mike McCarthy, his run in Dallas hasn't exactly been fantastic. Maybe he should not have had a job, entering this season. And, you look at the record and at how the team has done. Yeah, it's a justifiable firing. At the same time, you can't blame 100% of this season's problems on him when Jerry has done basically nothing to help this team.
This was basically play it again, as they say, like just repeat everything.
Yeah. Oh, we'll be fine. The Eagles will choke. Jaden Daniels, nothing's going to happen with him. And you know what? Credit to that. Jaden Daniels has taken a sock and put it in my mouth because he has done fantastic so far in the NFL.
And by the way, they played a really close game, by the way. I mean, they just got beat by a really good defense that held them off at the end. Potential coaches of the year on both sides in that game.
I know. And the Eagles, I mean, credit to them. You can talk about Nick Sirianni. You can talk about things all you want. They're a 7-win team as well. The Commanders and Eagles are both going to make the playoffs. Those two teams are leaving the Giants and the Cowboys in the dust.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't want to hear all this nonsense about Nick Sirianni. The team is good. And by the way, who draws the strategy up for the game every week? The coach. I mean, you still have to execute properly on the field, but if he wasn't executing strategy, then his ass should have been out the door a long time ago.
I mean, the one credit I will give to Johnny with that remark is, after the collapse of last season, going from 10-1 to only winning one game afterward, I feel like Nick Sirianni probably shouldn't have had a job. But so far, he's proven, maybe that was a bit of a fluke.
I also think they're much healthier this time around than they were by the time they got to the second half. Jalen Hurts was pretty much injured for the second half of the year. He couldn't throw the football. He couldn't run out of the pocket. So that made it harder for them to compete. And then I think he missed a couple games, if I'm not mistaken, in the second half.
Last season. Yeah. I don't know if it was in the second half, but he did miss a couple of games.
So he wasn't 100%. He's 100% this year.
Mm-hmm.
Cross your fingers, making it all the way to the end of the year.
Right.
But I just think they're a much better team. Their defense is responding a lot better than it did last year. They got back Devonta Smith and AJ Brown from injury, which is massive. If they don't have those two, they're fucked. That's just the way it is.
All I'm going to say is Giants versus Cowboys on Thanksgiving is getting a whole lot interesting for all the wrong reasons.
Oh, no. The Cowboys are going to get their turkey lamb-basted, basically.
You have a lot more faith in the Giants against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving than I do.
I don't know. It's going to be an ugly game. That's just the way I see it.
I mean, Lions versus Bears and then Giants versus Cowboys. Spend time with your families, folks.
I mean, dare I say the Lions-Bears game is the most interesting game?
Well, isn't it Dolphins-Packers on the night end?
I'm looking it up right now. But I think the Lions-Bears game is the most intriguing. That's just my opinion.
Dolphins-Packers is the nightcap. I might have to say that's the most intriguing.
All right, so it's Bears-Lions 12:30 CBS, which at least it still has a little bit of a storyline.
Yeah.
Giants-Cowboys, no one's going to care because there's just no juice. So Fox pretty much got screwed. And on NBC, so obviously, technically Sunday Night Football on Thursday.
Yeah.
Now that Tua's back, that matchup is definitely way more enticing, like you said. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're right. Maybe that's the most enticing. And the Friday game stinks. Just being Raiders-Chiefs.
Now, yeah. I mean, it's divisional. We've seen the Raiders pull off surprises. They beat the Chiefs last year on Christmas, if I remember right.
I forgot about that. You're right.
But still, the way the Chiefs are playing, the way the Raiders are playing, that just looks... Black Friday is right, because that's going to be a very dark day for Las Vegas.
And also, the Chiefs have not covered in how many games now? Like 8 or 9 in a row? I don't think they've covered this year.
Well, they're going to have an interesting matchup with the Bills this weekend. But then next weekend, Nick, they probably will cover because it's going to be a massacre. It's going to be a murder when they play the Panthers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You and I were talking about that. I mean, I think the spread's going to be too big where you and I are basically going to say -12.5, -13. There's no way we can pick that.
But considering it's the Panthers, well, I can't even say that because
the Panthers have actually played decent football the last couple games. Which
move on from it. I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear the word Germany ever again.
How do you say pain in German?
I should have looked that one up. I didn't even think about it. Did you hear though that I can't remember the ref. It's the one who had the father.
Sean Hockley talking in German during the first penalty.
That was like one of the coolest things ever.
That was actually a tribute because during, I think it was a game in Mexico.
It was the first ever international game.
Hockley spoke in Spanish.
That was like one of the coolest moments ever. And I usually hate referees in every way, shape, or form. But I'm like, that's awesome that he actually practiced that and got it down to a T. I was like, okay.
Hold on. Tom Grossi had mentioned what the pain. Oh, schmers.
Oh man.
All right, one last story here we got to get to quickly. Tropicana Field. There's a little bit of a downer to end this episode on, but it is to be mentioned. It's gonna cost about 50-something million dollars in repairs.
Like 55, 56.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tropicana Field, however, the repairs, the stadium will not be ready for 2025. The Rays will have to play in a temporary stadium. Right now, the discussion is either Tampa at the Yankees spring training facility or Clearwater, Florida at the Phillies spring training facility.
This is incredible by Major League Baseball because you're going to have two teams misplaced.
I know. Well, first of all, I think the issue with getting them into an actual minor or major league ballpark now and sharing with, because when the Yankee Stadium was undergoing reconstruction and renovation in the 70s, and then the
You're talking about
emergency one,
Shea Stadium. Yeah.
right?
They had three teams playing
Unfortunately,
there.
what?
They had three teams playing there. The Jets were playing there too.
Right. But my point being, I think the issue with that is the Major League Baseball schedule for 25 is it was already set in stone. It was already done
So
before that.
they didn't have much room to really.
Yeah. So if they want to share a ballpark for a couple of seasons, let's say with Florida with the Marlins, they're gonna have to wait till 26.
I just don't. Baseball, it's harder because of the conflicting schedules that come
Right.
up.
Right, but that's what I mean. Like you can't do it for 25. Now back to your comment. I mean, this goes back to something that I mentioned when this story first developed. It's kind of a shame because you have one team who's displaced and may never play at that stadium ever again because the new stadium is supposed to be ready by 2028. So is it worth putting in the $50 million when you've got only 2 seasons? But it's just a shame because you have all this talk about, the stadium is supposed to happen by 2028 or the forced relocation. The idea of do you relocate Tampa if the stadium doesn't go through? Like a lot of this is happening. Now, obviously, Tropicana Field has had its issues, but this specific situation is happening because of a natural disaster that is out of everybody's control. Meanwhile, with what's going on in Oakland or Vegas or whatever, they're the cityless team now.
That's just stupidity.
Like that's stupidity and greed and MLB wanting a team in Las Vegas. So it's two different circumstances.
And also not having it ready for when you actually want it to move.
Correct.
This was which hurricane was it? Milton, thank you. That destroyed, which by the way, I didn't think that dome could ever get destroyed the way it was built. But this Hurricane Milton was destructive. That's why I said destructive. Like it destroyed buildings and cars and the dome on Tropicana Field, which I thought would never happen.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like I mentioned a couple weeks ago when we first talked about this, when I was little, the idea of a dome stadium was cool. So Tropicana Field being in the AL East was something cool to see, but
the Metrodome.
Yeah, it's completely kind of aged itself out. And at this point, it's not worth it. If I was MLB, I would go to, at this point, the only team I can think of is the Marlins and say, look, 2025, they have to play at a spring training facility. But once 26 comes for 2 seasons, you're going to have to share the facility.
The problem is, like I said, say they both have home games.
Well, the MLB schedule makers, they can't do anything for 25, but the 26 schedule is not settled yet. So
unless you're going to have like 1 o'clock, 7 o'clock, which I don't think they could pull that off.
Probably not.
And it's harder for baseball.
But there's a lot of travel in baseball too that I think it's a little manageable.
Agreed. I mean, what was it? The Metrodome was the hardest when they switched sports.
Right. Unless you're going to have them relocate to another city for 2 years. They go to Nashville. They go to Montreal.
You realize, and I just thought of this, you made me think of this right off the top. They should put one of them in Nashville for the season to see how it plays out as a marketing test.
That's what I'm thinking. And the thing is,
but it's not the actual team, though. That's the difference.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. Let's say Major League Baseball sees that the new stadium for Tampa Bay is not going to be ready by 2028 or by the end of the start of the next decade, or the city decides to, change a mind and all of a sudden reject it. Now, all of a sudden, you're in a situation where if the Nashville or Montreal experiment goes well, you might just say, well,
just go to Nashville.
We're going to move you here permanently now. But how's that fair to a city of fans where, like it's not their fault the hurricane came in.
That's the problem you're running into. And it happened with Oakland with two teams from two different sports. You had the Raiders go from Oakland to Vegas, and that's what they're trying to, by the way, the same model if you look at it.
Right, I know. But
Because Rob
again,
Manfred copies everybody.
but one situation is a rundown stadium and they want to go to greener pastures for better or worse in Las Vegas. Better or worse means, I should say. Tropicana Field had its issues, but all this is being exacerbated by something that's not in the control of Rob Manfred, the team, the fans, or anything.
I mean, the other issue you have in Florida, you kind of need a stadium with a retractable roof, at least, because of all the rain.
I think the new stadium is supposed to have another roof.
I'm just saying generally, you need a roof or a dome in Florida because it rains like 90% of the year.
Right.
There, and you would have so many rain delays if you played in an open stadium in Florida. So that's part of the thing they got to figure out. So I was never the biggest fan of Tropicana Field, and first of all, we had all these dumb rules like this catwalk is a foul ball, this catwalk is a home run, this catwalk if it hits it, it lands in center field, it's in play. Like I can't keep track. I wish they would just like in Miami, like now that they have an open stadium, I think with a retractable roof, it's a much nicer stadium. Now, did Derek Jeter and his ownership destroy it? Yes, but it's a much nicer stadium.
All right. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to follow us across social media at ETB Sports and at ETB Network. Again, subscribe, youtube.com/ETB Network. Help us continue our climb up to 900 and eventually 1,000 subscribers. Listen to the Empty the Bench show and everything else here at the Empty the Bench Network, wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Spotify, Acast, Apple Podcasts, anything else that has audio to it. If you are listening on those platforms, make sure to go to the YouTube home. And of course, shout out to our friends over at Playback. We'll have more NBA streams coming your way in the very near future. Nick and company did stuff on Veterans Day for NBA streams. Zan and I just recently did Fight Study for UFC 309 this weekend. Obviously, Zan and I will have one, and Pat will have one more Fight Study in 3 weeks' time when UFC 310 comes around. But yeah, go to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out the latest schedule when you get when we have updates on what games we're going to do next.
Yeah, also be aware because we're roughly a month away from our ETB network year coming to an end, which is kind of scary thought to think about.
I believe we said Game Changers on December 14th is going to be the final show of the year, basically.
Yeah, so roughly in a month, our year ends. We go into best of mode for 2 weeks, except for some shows because their seasons continue.
I mean, the football shows that you all seem to love a lot, Forever Power 5, Football Forecast, they'll still be in season because obviously football's still in season.
Yeah, those go to the end of January and into February, both of those.
Right.
So you'll still see those.
Because the I think the national championship this year with the expansion is now MLK Day weekend. The Super Bowl is obviously
February 9th.
Yeah, the second Sunday of February.
Yeah. So just stay tuned. In about a month, we go into best of mode. You'll get all our shows and everything that's involved. Just follow the ETB Network social medias. We'll drop a schedule just so everyone knows when all the shows are coming, just so people are not confused. Yep. So just stay tuned for all that. And yeah, I think that's it.
Also, Thanksgiving coming up in a couple of weeks. Not as many changes considering how the schedule is right now with recording times and show air times, but there will be a couple of changes. So we'll let you know the week of Thanksgiving what'll go on.
Let's put it this way. Usually if you get it on a Saturday, you're going to get it on a Wednesday that week.
Well, one specific show. Yeah.
One specific show. Football Forecast will be on Wednesday. You'll get it right before the games. So that'll be the only change. But as we get closer to the end of the year, some things will maneuver a little bit. So you'll know. But that'll do it for episode 257. He's Albano. I'm Nick Morgasen. We'll see you next week for episode 258 of Empty the Bench. Have a good night, everybody.
Take care.